Thank you for joining me on this episode of On the Docket. I'm Cali Lichter, and I'm going to bring you your weekly recap of crime in court in and around the state of Michigan. This week, we deep dive into the cases of a former Grand Rapids police officer accused of burglarizing two local collectible shops and stealing thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. And a local DJ is recovering after being the victim of a random act of gun violence in downtown Grand Rapids. Plus, a Muskegon Heights council member talks to our Riley Mack about how he turned a prison sentence into a life of service. All of that and more is on the docket. A former GRPD officer is accused of stealing thousands of dollars worth of sports cards from a local card shop, and then he was charged with a similar incident in another county. A GRPD spokesperson confirmed that former officer Brian Casey is the suspect in a May burglary case at the Johnny Ford in Grand Rapids. According to documents in that case, officers arrived to an alarm coming from Johnny Ford's off of Plainfield Avenue around 1 a.m. that Sunday morning. And when they got there, the suspect was gone. But while officers were still on scene, down the road, Michigan State police troopers found a truck with Brian Casey in it and in his possessions boxes of sports cards. According to his probable cause affidavit, Casey told officers he had broken up with his girlfriend the night before and was drinking a large amount of whiskey. Casey also told officers that he had been to the store several times in the past. According to that GRPD spokesperson, Casey left the department on April 1st, citing personal reasons. But that wasn't the end of the legal troubles for Casey. He was charged almost 2 weeks later for a similar local card store case. Arnick Nelson was live at that Hudsonville store and spoke to the owner.
We're learning he's also being charged in a card theft here at this store here in Hudsonville. This is Playmakers, Gaming, Cards, and Collectibles. Now, we are learning more information, and we do actually have here with us the co-owner of the store by the name of Derek Dowdy. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us a little bit about this. Happened a few months ago, correct?
Yes, in the end of March.
End of March. So tell me a little bit about what exactly you found and how many cards were stolen and what the worth was and all of that.
Yeah, an individual had broken into our store. We discovered that he had broken in and then taken between $15,000 and $17,000 of our inventory.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about this. Must be unprecedented to come in and find that valuable amount of cards. Tell me a little bit about what your reaction was in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's every store owner's worst nightmare that somebody's going to break in. You're not there to make sure that all of your items are safe. It caused some anxieties in our employees and what would happen in the future if that happened again. But it gave us a good opportunity to tighten up our security, and Ottawa County Sheriff's Department has been really great. Several of the employees there are our customers, and they've told us they keep a little bit of an eye on our place after hours now.
Absolutely. Derek, thank you very much. And we do want to note that he was actively a Grand Rapids police officer during the time of this particular break-in. Now, we are continuing to comb over these court documents and learn more information. We'll bring that to you as we get it.
So before we get into those court documents, we actually got that security camera footage from the owner. We'll take a look at that in a second. But you're going to see 1, then 2, then 3, and then back to 2 security camera videos. The owner gave us 3 angles of the suspect. I did some movie magic to overlay them on the same screen, so the angles are roughly playing at the same time. There may be a few milliseconds of difference. I'll be talking over it with the police narrative of what's happening from a probable cause hearing transcript. Now, according to a detective on the case, we see the suspect, who was unknown at the time, wearing a black hooded inside-out sweatshirt, black face covering, a headlamp with a green power button on top, a yellow undershirt, yellow leather gloves, blue pants, and maroon athletic shoes with white soles. The suspect removed a black duffel bag with white lining and collected stolen property valued over $15,000 and then left the building. Now let's take a look into the docks, which led that officer to be charged in Ottawa County. And for context, this is a transcript of a probable cause hearing, which is when an officer, or in this case a detective, goes in front of a judge and gives their probable cause for why a certain charge should be authorized or issue a warrant. And this was happening on June 5th, this specific authorization of this warrant. And again, like all court docs, this is all alleged and everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Getting into it, the detective says they were called to Playmakers Collectibles in Hudsonville around 11 at night on March 25th for a burglary. Now, this is the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office. The detective then gives their account of what happened that we see in the security camera video. Then on May 24th, nearly 2 months later, GRPD was called to a burglary in Grand Rapids. The suspect was wearing the same yellow leather gloves and maroon athletic shoes with a white sole and was moving in a similar way to the incident at Playmakers. The suspect was later found by MSP to be involved in a traffic accident and then was identified as Brian Casey. The detective says Casey was located with stolen merchandise from the collectibles store. This is when he got into that accident, allegedly, and was also found to be intoxicated and in possession of a firearm, which he was not allowed to carry. He was arraigned in Kent County on charge of burglary, OWI, CCW, and possession of stolen property. And then a few days after that, they searched Casey's house. Detectives found evidence of the crime, including the black hooded sweatshirt with matching shirt tag, yellow shirt, blue pants, a headlamp with matching button, duffel bag, and black and yellow hammer. The detective also says stolen property was located, including a 2025 National Treasures baseball card box, a National Treasures 2025 college football box, a National Treasure NFL box, baseball cards from a 1993 Topps Series to wax box, a 2026 Topps 75th anniversary box, which was empty, and several cards from a 75th anniversary Topps 2026 box. Now, according to the docs, Casey was still at Mary Free Bed as of June 5th. Those cases in both Ottawa and Kent counties are pending in their respective jurisdictions. And next on the docket, we sit down with a Grand Rapids DJ who was the victim of random gun violence in downtown. Hear more about his normal night after a shift and how it turned into a nightmare next on the docket. A victim of random gun violence in downtown Grand Rapids is sharing his story. It happened after he left work for the night at the Bob. It was just another night walking to his car when the DJ said he was caught in the middle of gunfire. It's a walk he's done 1,000 times.
I've never felt unsafe. Never really even uncomfortable.
But early Sunday morning, Colin Piet, or DJ Colin Chaos, left with a bullet in his foot.
Shots fired. I couldn't even tell you how many. I'm guessing 4 or 5, but as that happened, I felt pain in my foot, so I knew that I had gotten hit.
Piet says he didn't pay much mind to the group of people on Monroe Avenue right in the heart of downtown until bullets started flying. He was leaving the Bob, where he has a DJ residency, around 1:30 a.m. 13 on Your Side observed bullet holes in the Louis Campau parking garage.
But in my mind, knowing what I knew happened, I'm like, okay, it's a cut, it's a laceration. Maybe it just grazed me or ricocheted off my foot.
High on adrenaline, Piet started driving home until he passed out and hit a pole. His truck was totaled, and when he got to the hospital, he had to get surgery for what turned out to be a bullet in his foot.
The nurses in the hospital commented pretty heavily about how I walked. I mean, it was 20 feet at least back to my truck, and I walked the entire way back there on a busted foot with a bullet in it.
The full-time graphic artist says in the past few years, the city has developed an issue with gun violence, something he hopes changes.
It's never been a bad place to live, and now with everything going on, it seems it's going to start getting that reputation, and it shouldn't get that reputation.
Piet will be out of work for 4 to 6 weeks as he recovers. GRPD says a teen was also shot in the forearm. Now, this package is just a fraction of what Piet and I talked about. Here's more from that interview as he recounts that night.
I was DJing at the Bob on the 3rd floor. End of the night, just kind of waiting for people to filter out of the building so I can make an easy exit. So I sat there and talked to staff. When it was about 1:20 when I left, and just started walking back to where I was parked, minding my business. Heard some commotion across the street around the AC Hotel. It didn't sound like an altercation to me. It sounded like people having a good time. And just kept walking, and shots fired. I couldn't even tell you how many. I'm guessing 4 or 5, but as that happened, I felt pain in my foot. So I knew that I had gotten hit. Floor a lot. Kind of checked my surroundings, saw people running away. I knew I was not going to be able to run just because of the pain. So I continued to walk to my truck, still watching. Got in my truck, sat there with my feet out, checked the bottom of my foot on my shoe because that's where most of the pain was. Didn't see anything. So I took my shoe off, and that's when I saw blood on my sock. And I took my sock off and I saw a laceration. So in my mind, knowing what I knew happened, I'm like, okay, it's a cut, it's a laceration. Maybe it just grazed me or ricocheted off my foot. So I started feeling around my foot to see if I could feel a bullet. And I didn't feel anything. So I'm going, okay, in my mind, it's bruising. My foot is starting to swell. This is bleeding. I'm going to go home, get it cleaned up. If it gets any worse, then I'll call the next day. So I started driving home on 131, and I got to Century, Burton and Century, got off on Century because I started feeling lightheaded. So I wanted to find somewhere to park to regain my bearings because I was getting those hot sweats when you know you're going to pass out. And before I had a chance, I blacked out and I ran into a pole. And when I came to, neighbors from the surrounding area came out, were checking on me. They called EMTs, paramedics, police, fire. I got out of my truck, sat down, was talking to them normally, waited for everybody to come and check me out. And that night I went to the hospital. And that's when I found out there was a bullet in my foot and I had a broken toe from the bullet. So I waited to get surgery for the next day. That's when it was scheduled. We just need to do better. I mean, being an up and coming city, I mean, I've watched the city grow even in my years, which aren't that many to compare to some, but it's never been a bad place to live. And now with everything going on, it seems it's going to start getting that reputation, and it shouldn't get that reputation. I mean, this is a great place to live, but we need to do better on what we can do with the control of it. And that's where it really stems from.
Next on the docket, our Riley Mack sits down with a Muskegon Heights council member who is turning his life experiences to help those in his community. Hear how William Kitchen turned his prison sentence into service next. In just 1 month, our country is turning 250 years old. 13 Years Side is celebrating the milestone through our series, We the People. Every week, our Riley Mack will bring stories of everyday people who represent America right here in West Michigan. But this week, her story intersects with On the Docket. Riley highlights the incredible story of a local leader who went from cell block to council chambers.
For his entire life, he has stood before closed doors, before barriers, before darkness. Because before he ever sat in this seat, William Kitchen sat in a prison cell.
21 years straight.
Words are what define us.
I come from the worst titles that you can think of. Inmate, convict, felon.
But William was once defined by a sentence.
I was charged with armed robbery and felony firearm. So I was sentenced to 11 to 40 years.
Charged as an adult. Sentenced as a child.
And that was starting at 14 years old.
14. I was in an overprotective household, and so I started to venture off into the streets a little bit. I should have stayed at home.
But by just 18 years
I
old,
couldn't remember what that felt like.
William didn't know what home was.
Once you get inside of prison, it's a whole different world. You have to adjust and adapt. I became violent. The Michigan Department of Corrections had designated me as a gang leader. So I did an additional 10 years based off of my misconduct and sent me into maximum security prisons, 23-hour lockdown. And I did that for about 16 years. I've spent at one point 2 years just in the hole. There had to be a level of almost insanity just to make it through the day. It felt like every part and every piece of me was broken. I hold myself accountable for the decisions that I made. But if I knew better, I would have done better.
Now 40 years old, William has spent more than half his life
I didn't go to prom, graduation. I just got my first car.
behind locked doors.
I missed all of it.
But wait until you hear what he did when one opened.
One of the greatest moments of my life.
A judge once handed William Kitchen a sentence, but at a 2025 city council meeting, a judge handed him something else.
Surreal.
A seat at the table.
I'm sitting in the conference room of the city council. Keys to the city hall.
Running for city council.
After doing 21 years in prison.
And winning.
Surreal.
Every precinct.
Surreal.
After his release, William mentored at schools across the county.
Try my best now to deter them from the path that I took.
And went back to school himself on a full ride scholarship.
Blew my mind.
Living in a freshman dorm at 36.
While I did have my moments where I felt insecure, not worthy, I still made the best of it. I wanted to learn as much as I could.
He was done serving his time. He decided instead
to say that I'm a city councilman in a city that I love.
To serve his city.
Carry it as a badge of honor.
For years, he was defined by a sentence.
A lot of people who come out of incarceration, they're ashamed.
Today, William Kitchen is writing his own.
It's something that I've allowed to now be my motivation.
With your We the People.
If that can happen for me,
I'm Riley Mack.
That can happen for any one of us.
Now, Riley and William had an amazing, nearly hour-long conversation. Let's play some clips that didn't make it into the story.
I do. I come from the worst, horriblest titles that you can think of. Inmate, convict, felon, poor. So to be able to transcend from those particular titles to say that I'm a city councilman in a city that I love, I carry it as a badge of honor. I was charged with armed robbery and felony firearm. Subsequently, I was given a 9-year sentence for the armed robbery and a 2-year sentence for the felony firearm. So I had a minimum sentence, charged as an adult, to 11 years minimum inside the Michigan Department of Corrections with the 40-year max. So I was sentenced to 11 to 40 years. But once you get inside of prison, it's a whole different world. You have to adjust and adapt to the culture inside of prison, and I did so, and I probably did so a little bit too well.
And that was starting at 14 years old.
14. It's one of the reasons why I try my best now to reach some of the youth that I can to deter them from the path that I took, because sometimes when you're young, it's not that you can't comprehend the consequences. You just can't look that far ahead. I didn't think that at 14 that I would be in a position that I was in terms of incarceration. But I was unable to see that far ahead. I mean, at 14, I couldn't even see myself as an adult, let alone be an adult that's in maximum security prison on a gang designation. I never knew that those were the type of consequences that would evolve from the decisions that I made. And I made them, and I take ownership of those. I hold myself accountable for the decisions that I made. But if I knew better, I would have done better. I couldn't see those consequences in my life. I couldn't see that the choices that I made would affect me and impact me in that way. Not just myself, but my family. Having to go through the things that I put them through throughout my 21 years of incarceration. I never knew that. So there were people hurt in my case, that I can never live that down. And it's something that it helps fuel and motivate me to help reach other people that may be on that trajectory in life. We have a saying, and I think I just said it, but if you knew better, you would do better. Some of us just don't know. And so one of the things that I like to do is try to help people understand this is where your choices will lead you. This is how it would impact you. These are the consequences that come behind certain behaviors. And I'm not speaking from the textbook. I'm not speaking from something that I watched on a movie. I'm speaking from an experience. And my experience became my expertise. What hurts the most sometimes is when you see your friends and your family and they have kids. Like when I left you, we were the same age. And now I come back, you're married, you have kids. Um, and so to witness these things and not having had the opportunity to experience those type of things, um, at first I thought it put me at a disadvantage, but mostly it did. It used to depress me a little bit because I felt like I had missed so much. Um, so I began to create what life is to me now. I can't cry about the past, but I also can't allow the past to traumatize me in that way to where it paralyzes me. And so instead of it paralyzing me, I used it as motivation for more mobility. Um, and it actually became like something great because I was able to do a lot of the things that I've been able to do because I don't have an attachment to a wife and I don't have the responsibility of kids. So that enabled me to be able to be more involved, to do more things that some people who would love to do but have so much responsibility can't do. So I had to look at it from there. I had to have a paradigm shift. I felt like a lot of the people that were making the decisions wasn't making it on behalf of the people. Now I'm in that seat. I realize the challenges and the difficulties that come with it. I didn't at first. Even a year ago, I was very critical of my colleagues. Some of them I'm still am today. However, I understand the challenges and difficulties that it come with. I've been making hard decisions for majority of my life. I used to make decisions on whether or not violence would occur. I used to make decisions whether or not someone would go to the hole. Hard decisions is not difficult to me. Now I make decisions on how to advance the city forward. The toughness of that decision doesn't weigh on me because of the other type of decisions that I've once had to make in my past life. What makes things difficult is when you can't draw on consensus and it's hard to work with other people. When that happens, you can't really make a decision because I'm just one of seven, right? I'm just talking at this point. If we can't draw a majority, I think that's the only frustrating thing is that in my previous life, if I make a call or I make a decision, it's just what it is. I don't have to debate back and forth with seven other people. In this sense, I have to figure out how to work well with others, to be a team player, to be a band instead of a solo singer. So I believe that for me, that's probably one of the challenges that I've walked into is that I have to depend on others to help me help them. So, but no regrets. A lot of people who come out of incarceration, they believe that it's their crutch. They embarrassed, they ashamed, and they want to keep it as quiet just as well as anything else because they feel that their incarceration can prevent them from getting the job that they want, can prevent them from developing a relationship that they want. At the core of it, we use incarceration as a way of downing who we are, diminishing who we are. And as long as we do that, we can never see the peaks because our incarceration, at least the thought of it, keeps us in the valley. For me, my incarceration was never my crutch. It was my superpower. It was my superpower. Because what incarceration did was give me a different vantage point on how to see the world, how to be grateful for the world, how to develop relationships, meaningful and impactful relationships with people, how to not take anything for granted. My incarceration became my superpower. It's how I engage the world. It's how I appreciate the world from a different vantage than most people will ever be able to have. My parole officer called me one day. He said, and this is, 4 or 5 years ago. And he said, "Hey, kid, you doing well?" I'm like, "Man, I'm doing great. I'm perfect." He was like, "Did you eat today?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just ate a couple ramen noodles." He was like, "Ramen noodles?" I was like, "Yeah, that's all I got. All I had was a box of ramen noodles." But I was so grateful because I can put cheese in it and I can add the meat sticks and right. I was grateful for that. I didn't have money to go to a restaurant, but I had a couple ramen noodles and I was full. I was okay. I ate because prison taught me how to appreciate things, how to take no circumstance for granted. While most of us couldn't live the life that I've come from. Not referring to prison, speaking of these 5 years since I've been here. No one can put me in a position to where I feel inferior because I've already been at my lowest. I've already felt broken. I've already seen what it is like to not feel human. So I've already experienced the fire. I was baptized in it. So the things that I experience now, it doesn't affect me in that same way that it would someone else. I had to borrow money from my mother just to go mentor kids in Whitehall and Montague because I didn't have enough gas to get there. But I got there, right? So I can't complain. I did 21 years in prison, and I'm sitting in the conference room of the city council, keys to the city hall. I got kids that see me all day long that give me high fives and tell me they love me, which is one of the greatest things that ever occurred for me in my life. Especially now, I'm going through all type of hardships right now. I'm enduring levels of hardship that I've never experienced. But what keep me going is when I see my community and I get out there and they say they believe in me and they love what I'm doing. That means I'm doing something right. The respect of the people that you respect is always worth more than the applause of the multitude.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of On the Docket on 13 Plus. We have new episodes releasing every week, taking you into the courtroom for the latest updates and deep dives on crime in and around West Michigan. In the meantime, we'll bring you the latest on crime in court, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com. And breaking news affects you and your community. We stream live on our streaming app with what you need to know right when you need to know. We'll see you next time with updates on What's on the Docket.